The organ music swelled through street Catherine's cathedral, filling every corner with its magnificent sound, but Thomas couldn't hear it. His heart hammered so loudly in his chest that it drowned out everything else. In 20 minutes, he would marry Victoria Ashford, the woman who had swept into his life like a whirlwind 18 months ago, beautiful, sophisticated, from one of Boston's oldest families. His mother had cried tears of joy when he'd announced the engagement. His colleagues had clapped him on the back, telling him he'd hit the jackpot. But standing there in his tuxedo, adjusting his bow tie for the 100th time, Thomas felt something he couldn't name. Something that tasted like doubt. The heavy oak doors at the back of the church stood open, welcoming the autumn breeze and the last few arriving guests. Thomas watched them filter in, air-kissing and murmuring about the flowers, the decor, how much everything must have cost. Victoria had insisted on perfection. Everything had to be perfect. That's when he saw her. A young woman stood at the threshold, backlit by the afternoon sun. She couldn't have been more than 19 or 20, with tangled dark hair and clothes that had seen better days, several seasons ago. Her jeans were torn at the knees, not fashionably but from wear, and she clutched a faded backpack to her chest like a shield. Several guests noticed her, their noses wrinkling in distaste as they hurried past. Thomas felt his best man, Marcus, tense beside him. "Security's going to handle that," Marcus muttered, already raising his hand to signal the ushers. But Thomas couldn't look away. There was something in the girl's eyes, a desperate urgency that made his stomach clench. She was scanning the church, her gaze moving frantically across the pews until it landed on him. Their eyes locked, and Thomas saw her make a decision. She started down the aisle. "Don't marry her." The girl's voice rang out, cutting through the organ music and the polite chatter. "Please, you can't marry her." The church fell silent. Every head turned. Thomas heard his mother gasp from the front pew. Two ushers moved toward the girl, but she was already halfway down the aisle, moving with surprising speed. "Security!" Someone called out, but Thomas raised his hand. "Wait," he said, his voice carrying in the sudden quiet. Something told him to listen. Something told him this mattered. The homeless girl stopped a few feet away from him, breathing hard. Up close, Thomas could see how thin she was, how her clothes hung on her frame. But her eyes burned with an intensity that held him captive. "I know how this looks," she said, her voice shaking. "I know you think I'm crazy. But I can't let you do this without knowing the truth." Victoria's maid of honor appeared from the bridal suite, her face flushed with anger. "Someone call the police. This is insane." "Please," the girl said, turning back to Thomas. Her eyes were filling with tears. "My name is Emma. Emma Chen. Does that name mean anything to you?" Thomas frowned, searching his memory. "No, I don't." "What about Sarah Chen? Your fiancé would know that name." Thomas's blood ran cold. Sarah Chen. He did know that name. Victoria had mentioned her once, months ago, in passing. A former employee at her family's company who had caused problems. Victoria had been dismissive, changing the subject quickly when Thomas had asked for details. "Sarah Chen was my mother," Emma continued, her voice growing stronger. "She worked at Ashford Industries for 15 years. She was a quality control inspector. 3 years ago, she discovered that your fiancé's family was using substandard materials in their medical device manufacturing. Equipment that was going into hospitals. Equipment that could fail and hurt people." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Thomas felt his world tilting. "That's a lie." The shrill voice came from the back of the church. Victoria stood in the doorway of the bridal suite, still in her robe, her face contorted with fury. "That woman was trying to extort money from my family. She was fired for cause." Emma didn't back down. From her backpack, she pulled out a worn folder, her hands trembling as she held it out to Thomas. "My mother documented everything. She went to your fiancé first, privately, hoping it could be fixed quietly. Instead, the Ashfords destroyed her. They blacklisted her in the industry. They spread rumors about her having mental health issues. They made sure she could never work again." Thomas took the folder with numb fingers. Inside were pages of reports, photographs, test results, all meticulously organized and dated. Sarah Chen's handwriting was neat and precise, the work of someone who cared about details. Who cared about doing the right thing. "My mother lost everything," Emma said, her voice breaking. "We lost our house. We lost our health insurance. She got sick 2 years ago, cancer, but we couldn't afford treatment. The free clinics did what they could, but. She wiped her eyes roughly with the back of her hand. She died 6 months ago. In a shelter. The same woman who had spent 15 years making sure other people were safe died because no one would help her. The church was completely silent now. Thomas looked up from the folder to find Victoria stalking down the aisle, her face a mask of rage. How dare you show up here and spread these lies on my wedding day? Victoria's voice was shaking. Thomas, don't listen to her. She's obviously disturbed. Is it true? Thomas's voice was quiet, but it stopped Victoria mid-sentence. Did your family do this? For just a moment, Victoria's mask slipped. Thomas saw something in her eyes he'd never seen before, not remorse, but cold calculation. She recovered quickly, her expression softening into hurt innocence. Thomas, you know my family. We're pillars of this community. We donate millions to charity. Would we really? Answer the question, Victoria. Is it true? The silence stretched between them. Victoria's jaw tightened. That woman was going to destroy everything my family built over one little quality variance that was well within industry standards. She wouldn't listen to reason. She was going to go public, to the FDA, to the media. What were we supposed to do? Thomas stared at the woman he'd been about to marry, seeing her clearly for the first time. You could have fixed the problem, he said softly. You could have done the right thing. Victoria's face hardened. Oh, grow up, Thomas. This is how the real world works. Sometimes you have to make difficult choices to protect what matters. And Sarah Chen didn't matter. Her daughter didn't matter. All the patients who used your equipment didn't matter. Don't be so dramatic. Nothing catastrophic happened. Nothing catastrophic happened because my mother caught it in time. Emma's voice rang out. Because she cared more about strangers' lives than keeping her job. Thomas looked down at the folder again, at years of one woman's careful, conscientious work. Then he looked at Emma, homeless, grieving, but still fighting for her mother's truth. Still trying to do the right thing, just like Sarah Chen had. He took off his bow tie. Thomas, what are you doing? Victoria's voice rose to a shriek. Our guests are here. The reception is paid for. You can't possibly. I can't marry you, Victoria. Thomas's voice was steady now, certain. I can't marry someone who would destroy a good person for trying to do the right thing. I can't marry someone who values reputation over human life. He turned to Emma, whose eyes were wide with shock. Your mother was brave. She was a hero. I'm so sorry for what happened to her. I'm sorry no one listened. Emma's face crumpled, and she started to cry. Real tears this time, tears of relief and grief and exhaustion all mixed together. Marcus, Thomas said to his best man, who was watching everything with his mouth open. Call the FBI's white-collar crime division. And get me the contact information for every medical board and regulatory agency you can find. He held up the folder. This needs to go to the right people. Sarah Chen's work needs to matter. The church erupted in chaos. Victoria was screaming, her mother was screaming, guests were pulling out their phones. But Thomas ignored all of it. He walked over to Emma and gently took her backpack, slinging it over his own shoulder. Have you eaten today? He asked her quietly. She shook her head, looking dazed. Come on, let's get you some food. And then we're going to find you a safe place to stay. And after that, we're going to make sure everyone knows what your mother did. We're going to make sure her story gets told. Emma looked up at him with red-rimmed eyes. Why are you helping me? You don't even know me. Thomas smiled sadly. Because your mother tried to help people she didn't know. Because doing the right thing cost her everything, and someone should have stood up for her. He glanced back at Victoria, who was being consoled by her weeping mother. Because I almost married someone who taught me exactly what kind of person I don't want to be. 6 months later, Thomas sat in a small coffee shop across from Emma. She looked different now, healthy, her eyes bright, wearing clean clothes and a tentative smile. The Ashford Industries scandal had been front-page news for weeks. Federal investigations were ongoing. Several executives, including Victoria's father, were facing charges. And Sarah Chen's name had been cleared, her reputation restored posthumously. Emma was enrolled in community college now, studying to be a nurse. Thomas had helped her find a scholarship fund for children of whistleblowers. She had an apartment, a part-time job, a future. I still can't believe you did all this, Emma said, stirring her coffee. You lost everything too. Your job, your social circle. Thomas shook his head. I didn't lose anything that mattered. I gained something more important. I learned what integrity actually costs. Your mother paid that price. The least I could do was make sure it meant something. Emma smiled, the first real smile he'd seen from her. She would have liked you, I think. She always said the world needed more people who chose to be kind instead of comfortable. Thomas raised his coffee cup in a toast. To Sarah Chen, a real hero. To my mom, Emma echoed, tears shining in her eyes but her voice strong. And to second chances. As they sat there in the warm afternoon light, Thomas thought about that moment in the church when everything had changed. Sometimes the voice you need to hear comes from the most unexpected place. Sometimes an angel appears at your door in torn jeans and tangled hair, offering you one last chance to choose what kind of person you want to be. He had made his choice. And he had never been more certain of anything in his life.